Sheena Williams with Krav Maga Salem here with Aaron Jannetti, somebody I'm a big fan of. I'm very honored to say he's actually one of my coaches, somebody that I work with. He's a blessing to work with. He's so knowledgeable. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about why he's so amazing. Yeah, without further ado, Aaron, introduce yourself for those people who, for some crazy reason, don't know who you are.
My name is Aaron Jannetti. I run Endeavor Defense and Fitness in Columbus, Ohio. I teach online programming in self-defense, personal development, business. I teach actor-shooter response. Wrote a book for fun. That was a good time. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later.
We will.
Yeah, I've dabbled in anything for personal wellness, overall health, and overall awesomeness for the last 12 years. So that's kind of the big one there. And I'm super excited to be on this awesome interview with the one and only Sheena Williams. Super pumped to see these interviews going out, and I'm honored to be on here and be able to kind of chat with you. So let's do it.
Wonderful. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about that book.
Yeah. So How to Survive an Active Killer. That came out, so let's see, 2016, wrote it in 2017. So yeah, published in 2017. So it's been out. Isn't that crazy? Like I have to think about when this came out. So it's been out a little bit over 2 years, coming up on 2.5 years. And it was essentially the culmination of all of the hands-on training that we had been doing with active shooter response and our desire to want to get this information to as many people as possible. So end of 2015, when you had the Bataclan Theater attack overseas, and then you had San Bernardino pretty close back to back. That was when that was like the big spark that really made people go like, oh shit, this is a thing that's happening more often, and maybe we should be a little more concerned about it. We happened to have the Blaze come in and film one of our hands-on workshops, and it took off like wildfire. I don't know what it's up to now, but it had a lot of views. And so 2016, I taught over 80 seminars in more than 20 states, and then 2 countries as well. And it allowed us to see thousands and thousands of students and to actually pressure test what we were teaching. And so the thing that we were teaching on the video at the end of 2015 is almost nothing like what we teach now, because we had an opportunity to go here and teach, 100 people here, 50 people here, 80 people here. I got to work with Ryan Hoover. I got to work with Todd Fossey. I got to work with Tony Blauer on these topics specifically and see what they're doing. And they got to see what we were doing. And there was such an evolution in 2016. And there was also what seemed to be a lot more mutual respect in the industry. It's like we're all kind of like what we're seeing right now, where like, hey, we're all in this together. Let's help some people out. There was a lot more cooperation and coordination. And 2016 was a massive evolution in training. And so, we had, like I said, had an opportunity to pressure test with thousands and thousands of students in multiple states, and then again in a couple other countries. And we kept getting, hey, we want you guys to come out. What are some other resources? And so beginning of 2017, I actually was drinking a bottle of bourbon with a very good friend of mine, Drew Dillon, and was telling him about how, like, man, I really want to write a book. I don't even know where I would start. I have so many thoughts going through my head. There's so many things I want to do. And he essentially looked at me across the table. We were probably a solid half a bottle of Booker's into this conversation. And he goes, why don't you just wake up 1 hour early every day and write? And I was like, okay. And so literally January 1st of 2017, if I was supposed to get up at 6 a.m., I got up at 5. If I was supposed to get up at 5 a.m., I got up at 4. If I was supposed to get up at 9 a.m., I got up at 8. And I would set a clock and I would write for 1 hour. Some days I got 100 words. Some days I got a few thousand. Some days I went back and re-edited. And I forced myself to write for, well, I say forced, but the reality of it was it was a very big passion project. So I wrote for 1 hour every day. took about 6 months to write the original manuscript and then go back and go through like the editing and publishing process. And then we actually got it published at the end of the year. And it's been out for a little while. And I'm already looking at making a second edition because we've learned even more since that book came out. However, the amount of people we've been able to touch in a positive light with that book has just been a huge fulfillment for us and a huge opportunity to help the community. So I get really excited about talking about that book.
Well, it's a fantastic book, and one of the things I like about it, where I've read other similar books on similar topics, where a lot of it is really driving kind of that fear factor of and your book isn't that way, and you're just not that way, which I really appreciate about you. Just all the things you do are generally very positive, and your book, even though it's talking about a very serious topic, it's not really driving home that point of fear. Rather, it's more forced in the education, right? Be aware, be alert, know these things in advance, be prepared, not fearful. And I really appreciate that about your book.
Thank you. That is, to hear that coming from, another instructor, especially somebody that understands psychology and fear and violence like you do, that was exactly the point we were trying to get across to people is like, look, it's preparation, not paranoia. It's, hey, let's just look at the facts. It's the same thing with everything we're dealing with right now. It's like, hey, you can be as angry or as scared or as anxious as you want. The reality of the day is, let's focus on what's going on. What are we in control of? And go ahead and attack it. And at the end of the day, you can choose to read the book and not do anything with your life, or you can choose to read the book and do something positive. But it's up to you. I'm just here to educate.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think we're seeing that a lot today with what's going on. Here at Krav Maga Salem, we kind of refer to it as ostrich syndrome. Head in the sand, ass in the air, it's not going to happen to me, and it's just not the way we should be, like we're talking about, right? Educate yourself, be aware, be prepared, not fearful, right?
Yeah.
Education and preparation means you don't have to be fearful.
Right. 9 times out of 10, and again, Tony Blauer will kill me on statistics on fear. However, the reality is most people are simply afraid of things they don't understand. And so if you really, really, really want to get to a point where you can face something with confidence, you have to dip your toes in the water, and then you got to get to knee level, and then you got to go from there. And so, it's one of the things I wrote in that book was that section called Learn to Swim, where it's, look, the only way if you can absolutely guarantee that you don't drown is to get really good at swimming. Like, you can avoid water all you want, all those type things. However, if you ever confront water, the one way that you'll have a higher chance, a higher likelihood of facing that with confidence and making the right decision is to throw yourself in the water and learn how to swim. It's the same thing. It's anything that you're fearful of, anything that brings you anxiety, figure out how to take the first step, and then the next step will become a little easier. Next step will come a little easier. And then next thing you know, you'll be hosting live interviews with massive amounts of people, even though 3 weeks, 4 weeks prior hated being on video.
Boy, that felt pretty pointed. So
look how good you're doing.
For those of you who don't know, these interviews are directly Aaron's fault. So he's been really good about pushing me outside of that comfort zone. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. We all need, to take that step to continue to grow, get outside that comfort zone, and just continue moving forward and, continually expanding our worlds. That's what life is all about, right? Is living to the fullest and getting ourselves immersed in everything as much as possible, everything we're passionate about, every aspect of it. And as you guys know, I'm very passionate about self-defense and getting everybody the best training and learning. And so the best way for me to do that is to bring some of the biggest names I can find on to talk to you guys, like my good friend here, Aaron. So, couple quick questions for you. Obviously, a lot of people know you from the book, right, which is a big deal. And, of course, your Krav Maga background. But Krav Maga is not the only martial art you've been involved in. You've been involved in lots, tons. Really, you can call yourself just a overall mixed martial artist because you've done so many different things. Tell us about how you got involved in the martial arts world, not just martial arts, but firearms and the self-defense community. What started that for you?
That's a phenomenal question. I dabbled a little bit in martial arts when I was younger. I grew up in Poland, Ohio, which is just outside of Youngstown, so northeast Ohio on the PA border kind of. And did a little bit of karate, like standard what everybody did, right? You stick your kids in karate for a little while. So it was like karate for kids. I made maybe one belt test, if that. However, I had gotten in, enough little scraps and things like that. I was an angry little kid. My parents were separated. I could pull out the whole, father was, narcissistic, bipolar, angry, like that type story. However, I was an angry little kid. So I got into scuffles. I had my own demons that I was battling with. When I got to college, I was paying my way through college, and I hit a semester or a quarter, as at Ohio State back in the day, where I couldn't afford to go to classes. I had just broken up with a girl that I had been dating for quite a while. I was in a pretty dark place. So like a lot of those older demons had been catching up to me at that point. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. So I was looking for an outlet, and I happened to be watching Fight Quest, if you remember that show from back in the day. And it was the Krav Maga episode. And you talk about poignant marketing, is Ohio Krav Maga paid to have an advertisement during Fight Quest of the Krav Maga thing, right? So I see this, advertisement for, come in and essentially and beat the shit out of stuff. And so I showed up. I had zero money, had no idea how I was going to pay for it. However, I never left. I gave them a check I knew was pretty much going to bounce. And I at that point in time, I showed up 6 days a week. I'd get there before the gym would open. I'd be jogging laps around the outside. I knew I needed to be there. I felt good for an hour, and that to me was like exactly what I needed. And thank God that I did, because I tell people this all the time, and I mean it from the bottom of my absolute heart with this. That was a crossroads, and had I not found Ohio Krav Maga, I imagine I would have turned out to be a piece of shit, or there's a high likelihood I would have. So it was one of those moments where I found the thing that I was supposed to do, and it saved and changed my life in a way that, it just took over passionately for me, and I've pursued it ever since. So I was blessed. The guy that brought me up, his name's Mark Slane. I learned a lot from him. I'm realizing I learned way more from him than I even knew back then, as I'm getting older and wiser, and well, hopefully wiser. Anyway, he took me under his wing. He bought me my first gi. I think I maybe paid membership for 2 months, and then he realized, like, this broke ass kid can't afford to be here, but he wants to be here, and he's very passionate. So he stopped my payments. He gave me a key because I think he felt bad I was showing up early, like, and nobody was there. So he gave me a key to the gym, and he came up to me. I joined February 6, 2008. I will never forget that date the rest of my life. February 6, 2008. I signed the paperwork to go there. And August of 2008, he paid to fly me to LA for my phase A. And then he paid to drive me to Virginia Beach for my CrossFit level 1. He was also paying for me to go to Rogue Fitness at the time. That was a workout. He was bringing in Kali instructors. He was bringing in Thai boxing instructors. So by August, I was a certified Krav Maga instructor and a CrossFit affiliate owner. So 6 months after showing up. So you talk about speed of implementation. And he then later asked me if I wanted to open up his second facility and essentially run it for him. So at that point in time, I left my job, and I dropped out of college, and took a full-time job as program director of Ohio Krav Maga and Fitness for the amazing salary of $1,000 a month. And yeah, the rest is history. I found he flew us out to LA when he first opened USKMA, and he flew us out to LA for the Martial Arts Super Show. And that's when I was actually introduced to Rob Pincus. And Rob Pincus happened to be living in Columbus at the time. So when we got back, I reached out to him and said, hey, we talked about training. You have a little moment. And Rob took, 5 hours out of his day to do a one-on-one training session with me, which I didn't realize it at the time, but he had Black Wing close down like a section of the range, and it was crazy shit. So I went over there, and he really got me hooked on the way he approached defensive firearms. So I jumped into one of his certifications, and I've been really, really good friends with Rob ever since. He owns 5% of Endeavor. He helped us open it up. We support each other to this day. So that's how I got into firearms. So to this point, I've done boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, Kali, Balintawak specifically, firearms, multiple firearms people. I don't even know. I've competed in BJJ. I've done MMA. I took a Defendo seminar. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. I've trained with Rory Miller. I fucking love training is what it kind of comes down into. I love getting challenged. I've been blessed to, Mark helped me train all over. He sent me to go train with Eyal Yanalov, and we trained over in Israel multiple times. And just everything we can get our hands on out in LA with the Krav Maga Worldwide guys back in the day, down to see Ryan and all of his crew tons of times. So, yeah, I know this is a very long-winded, but this is the story. And for the last 12 years, I've done nothing but teach and train and continually optimize my ability to help the next student is essentially what it comes down to. The more that I know and the more that I understand, the more questions I can answer if somebody has them. And that, to me is what makes you a really good instructor. So.
Well, just to kind of give you something else at the tail end of that, talking about continually training and continually learning, you're a very fit guy. You've got a great skill set. You continue to learn. But you're constantly learning. So many instructors or so many students we see, they kind of get one skill set and they kind of hang their hat on it and stop training. What is it that motivates you to continually train, continually educate yourself, and really strive to know more?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To me, there's three parts to that, three sections to it. I would say three reasons. One's, family, one's going to be from a professional sense, and the one's from a personal sense. Personally, I absolutely love being a student. And, I imagine any instructor listening to this that's been, teaching for longer than a year knows that it's very easy to get sucked into the role of a teacher. And so when you talk about people that, they're only teaching one thing and they've done it for so long, sometimes you end up there and you didn't even realize it. And it was because there was a need or a desire to there's somebody else I could help. There's somebody else I could help. There's somebody else I could help. We see this all the time in the martial arts world where we mix up what we need to survive to be able to actually take care of people and what is actually sacrifice. And we end up sacrificing ourselves. Until then, it becomes really hard to get back on the horse. So a lot of people end up there not even realizing it. We see business and gym owners all the time that run themselves dry and then wonder why they're, having resentment or they're hurting, things like that. So all of that will take me off on a whole nother tangent. However, I absolutely love being a student, and there's from day one to have those aha moments, and to actually be listening intently to somebody else and taking in new knowledge that you'll be able to turn around and help somebody else with. Like, to me personally, I absolutely love that sensation. It's one of the reasons I actually stopped teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at my own facility, so that I had a thing that I'm a student. Like, if you see me in a class, I'm a student. You can't even mix me up as an instructor in this category, because I am a student when it comes to jiu-jitsu. So it's like my safety. It's my sacred place. So I just love that. And so I usually try to do that to keep me in that student role. It also reminds me what it feels like to be a student. And come on, man, we've all had those aha moments, and they're great. They're like crack. Whoa. Like, I never knew that. Now I get to do this thing. You know what I mean? So from a personal standpoint, it's being a student. From a professional standpoint, the second, this is absolutely true. I don't care who you are. The reality of it is, this is 100% brass tacks. The second that you stop educating yourself you stop becoming a good instructor. You stop moving forward, and you've essentially pigeonholed yourself to only knowing this level of knowledge. So by continually training, you're continually challenging your own professionalism, your own knowledge, your own wisdom. And then you get to see it from different angles. You get to see like, oh, wow, that makes total sense. Prime example, when I was first, maybe a year into running the Ohio Krav Maga facility, I can vividly tell you that I live in the Midwest. Wrestling's huge out here. Columbus, Ohio State Wrestling. We have great wrestling in the area, right? I was fucking telling wrestlers that their wrestling skills were dumb because Krav Maga. Like, that was my answer. Like, no, don't get to an underhook. Then you're attaching yourself to the bad guy, and then you can't disengage very easily. And I look back like now, and I'm be like, now, like everybody I grab, I go like, you need to wrestle. Let me teach you about wrestling. Like, so you have to continually expose yourself to different material to continue to become a good instructor. The second that you're like, I found this out the hard way. However, the second that you are like committed to like a strict curriculum, it's for yourself. Like, everybody has to have a curriculum to be able to pass forward. That's just the way it works as an instructor. However, the day that you're like, yeah, my curriculum's the shit and there's nothing wrong with my curriculum, you're wrong on so many levels, because there's always something else that you can put to it. So from a professional standpoint, I continue to train and continue to optimize on and off the mats to become a better instructor. I am super passionate about teaching, no matter what it is. Teaching personal growth and breathing, teaching self-defense, teaching fitness. I love teaching. So to become a good teacher, you have to constantly be a student. And then for me, at the end of the day, when it comes down to my family, is the best way for me to take care of my family is to be the best possible instructor I can possibly be. And to be the best possible instructor I need to be able to train. And to be able to train properly, I know that by spending the time that I spend in the right places on training, optimizing my level of knowledge, I can take care of my students. And then if I'm taking care of my students, that means I can take care of my family as well. And so for me, it's like a three-pronged approach and understanding the entire encompassment of why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic answer. I think it hits a lot of really key points that I think are going to resonate with a lot of people. I know it does with me. We've had that conversation, and, as you guys have heard, Aaron's one of my coaches, and he's helping me work through some of that stuff too, to make sure that, I'm staying on top of it as well. I mean, I go and train with people all over the place. I've been all across the United States and more, trying to get more training and bring back the best that I can, because just like you, and I think most instructors are this way, is, we get into this because we're passionate, just like your instructor was passionate, about teaching you and building you up. We want to give our students the best that is out there. And so I think as we continue to seek it out, it can be very easy for us to get so focused on finding the next thing that we fall off in our own training sometimes. So
Yeah.
on the tail end of that, let me ask you a question, because I know you've trained with everybody and anybody. Of all the amazing people that you've trained with, who do you think gave you the best, or over delivered, right? So you kind of planned for this, but it was more than you expected in the best of ways.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I could most likely come up with a lot. However, two jump to my mind right out of the gate, and one I would say has made itself a lot more apparent a lot more recently. And again, I'm going to go back to Mark Slane. And so Mark Slane was my mentor coming up, and the one thing always stuck out to me when we would go out to other trainings is that people that had been training as long as myself and the other instructors that were going through this, we were always, I mean, and again, like, this is going to come off as ego. I don't really care. It's ego for Mark. We were always twice as good. You know what I mean? Somebody, an instructor that was this, and this. So whatever Mark was doing, the amount of physical and psychological abuse that he was putting us through was working, because, we always showed up, a little bit of a higher level. And so I've always realized that the reason this question is so interesting, and I hinted to it or alluded to it earlier, is that there were a lot of lessons that I don't know if he was actually trying to show me or not, or if I was just picking up on them, that I didn't realize until the last 2 years, until I became a business owner, until I became, and I've been a business owner for longer than that. However, until I started looking at family time and personal growth and some of those things, where the 22-year-old kid that he was coaching at the time, like I wanted abuse, I wanted activity, I wanted to get in front of people and things like that. And, he was the one that would be like, hey, we got to make sure that this is happening, and you got to make sure that this is happening. And I'm looking back now going like, oh, fuck, like I gave him a lot of crap about the way he approached a couple of things. And he would tell me, you're just too young, you don't get it, your ego's getting in the way. And I look back and go like, well, he was right. And so when it comes to over delivering, it's interesting to look back at some of the mentors and things like that, especially Mark, and realize that, Mark and I, we had a little bit of a falling out 7 years ago. And, we still talk and we communicate every now and again. However, 7 years since the last time him and I were very close, I'm still picking up on lessons. So to me, that's over delivering. So that's a big one right out of the gate. And then I've got to be completely honest, in most recent history, the crew from Strong Coach have Strong Coach is a program developed by a guy named Mike Bledsoe. So anybody in the CrossFit world will know who Mike Bledsoe is, or should know who he is. Anyway, they work with coaches and gym owners on, personal development, business development, all that type of stuff. And when I entered the Strong Coach program, because I don't care what level you're on, you should always have a coach. So whatever you suck at, go find a coach. You're having trouble with your business, go find a business coach. You're having trouble with relationships, go find a relationship coach. You're having trouble throwing a right cross, go find a boxing coach. So I've always driven my business and my brand with passion and charisma, which is fantastic and great. However, at some point in time, you have to set a future for your kids. You have to set a future for yourself. So when I started learning these lessons was through that program. Now, why I say they over-delivered is they over-delivered on what they said they were going to do, which was phenomenal. However, they over-delivered in a way I don't even imagine they knew, because the lessons that I learned from a business standpoint and how to manage my own shit actually completely changed the way that I coached people on self-defense, completely changed the way I coach people on fitness, and to a level where I'm getting results with people that 12 months ago, 18 months ago, even having over a decade of experience under my belt, I would not have been able to do. And it came from that program. And it wasn't shit that, they weren't coming in and going like, I'm going to make you a better self-defense instructor. It was really like, hey man, we're going to help you make money so you can take care of your family doing the thing you love to do. And all of a sudden I'm able to sit across the table from people that have had trauma. I'm able to sit across the table from people that have been really stuck on certain goals and walk them through a process that they just crush shit and their life gets way better. I'm able to get people to fight better and to up their conditioning and stuff like that through the roof. So it tipped my hat off to those guys. And I continue to work with them. I was just on a call with them right before this, and they're just absolutely phenomenal. They're worth every moment of your time and every penny you can give them if you're a coach and a gym owner.
That's awesome. And, I think that's fantastic. I mean, you're obviously a very good instructor in what you do, but you take a unique approach, not just in your self-defense, but all of your training. But I love to highlight specifically your self-defense stuff, because you take a different approach where a lot of people will focus on, okay, yeah, let's just go and bang it out and, sweat hard and hit things hard. But you have the unique ability to tap into that mentality and to some of that trauma and some of that other stuff, to be able to talk about breathing and, all of that on the floor, which is such a vital part that I think a lot of self-defense instructors miss. And I think it's so important. And I'm so glad that there are other people out there who are building on that element of it. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, think about the way that self-defense and fighting and all that type stuff works, right? To be able to go out into the world and teach people, you have to have a standardized set of curriculum in some form or fashion. It's just the way that it works. And you can be upset about it all you want. You can say like, oh, how could you have a standardized curriculum and stuff like that? But you have to if you're going to quote unquote present your world. So the problem with that then becomes that we tend to steer towards the things that are sexy and that people enjoy and that are going to get us the most attention. And we fall off from what ends up being some of the more important elements that just take a little bit of time to get through. So if you think to any marketing, not any, but the more frequently, more often than not, the marketing you see around self-defense organizations, this isn't for all of them, but it's for a lot of them. You think about the curriculum that you've ever gone through for an instructor training. You think about the webinars and presentations that are generally gone out to, and how many of them legitimately talk about personal development, talk about breathing, talk about approaching past trauma to be able to get through it. Now, that's not to say that this stuff doesn't exist. It's that the reason we don't see it on such a widespread level is because usually people find out about this stuff. Yeah, you like the kid in the background. Usually people find out about this stuff way later on into their experience. And in my experience, it's usually because they ran into a student that had trauma and they had to go find out how to deal with that. It's not something that's standardized in the way that we coach, right? Or the way that most instructor development programs put you through from a self-defense perspective. So it's uncommon, right? Now, the reason it's so important is you can only overcome and overshadow so much of your own BS before at some point in time, your internal stories start to shut you down. You start telling yourself, you start having negative talk. You start saying like, oh, the reason I suck is because my instructor's, sucks and he's not doing this. And, oh, it's the program. Oh, it's the gym. Oh, it's this. And everybody has excuses for everything. So they end up thwarting development because they just get to a point where they're so used to smashing through whatever the hell's in front of them and just overtraining it. They don't realize they're getting held back by a lot of their stuff. So it's completely understandable that we see this a lot less frequently. And the other reason is, let's be real. If your marketing right out of the gate was like, come in and let me help you through your internal struggles and stories, we'd probably have a lot less people coming through the door. So you have to get them through the door. You have to be able to identify their pain points, and then you have to be able to walk them through what they eventually need by telling them you're going to give them what they think they want, right? And that's marketing and psychology rolled into one, sexy little ball. However, breathing, internal stories, it's the root of everything. If you look at any motivational speaker, any motivational speech, and it's rooted in some type of internal story that they're trying to get you to say to yourself. Think breathing in general, breathing physically, physiologically, neurologically, from an emotional standpoint, is at the root of every phenomenal program. Think about even okay, cool, I'm going to teach somebody how to throw a combination. You're telling me that no one's ever taught, breathing rhythm and cadence when throwing combinations? Okay, so it's important enough to talk about there. However, we're missing oftentimes that breathing is also how we get ourselves through stress. It's also how we walk ourselves down, from an internal story. In the middle of, think about like how many people that have cornered somebody in a fight have just been like, breathe, focus on your, like relax, catch your breath. Like breath is the root of everything. And yet more often than not, we're not hitting it the way that we need to. So a lot of people talk about breath. A lot of people do. They talk about it from weightlifting. You hear my daughter? You talk about it from a weightlifting standpoint. You talk about it from producing power. Even the term kya, right? So kya, all of that stuff is based in core stability and exhalation and all that type of stuff. So we have those pieces of the puzzle where people need to lean into it more, at least in my experience, is breathing should be part of what you teach day one. And it should be taught in correlation with both physical and then also neurological. So we breathe to hit better, we also breathe to calm ourselves, right? Like our whole entire objective as self-defense instructors is to walk people through what is going to be an adrenaline-filled, terrifying moment in their life. So teaching them how to control stress through breath is massively important. And it's something that I wish a lot of people did a lot more of, even on a rudimentary level. So that's like a long-winded, crazy way around, why breathing is important and how we get into it. But I think at the root of it, I want people to understand, like, it's not just like, hey, tomorrow go ahead breathing into your classes. Like, I understand why it's not sexy. It's not what everybody wants. It's definitely not found in most self-defense programs and things like that. However, if you want to set yourself apart, if you want to be the group that steps out and says, I am this instructor, I am this person that's going to lead my community, breathing is going to be an absolutely crucial point of it. It's why before you can do any certification level with me for anything like active shooter response or knife control concepts, any of the programs I run, you have to go through the Instructor Elevation Project. And as someone who's going through it right now, we talk about language and breathing and internal stories a lot. Because if you own that, the rest of it, can be done on such an elevated level. So I don't know if that completely answered your question. However, that's my long-winded explanation of why breathing is awesome and touching the surface of how you can become a total badass instructor and a badass in life by leaning into breathing a little more.
Well, and I know as somebody who's currently going through your Instructor Elevation program, I mean, it's such a phenomenal program. And I mean, you want to talk over delivering, Aaron, you're definitely doing so. I mean, the things, he kind of warned me in the beginning that the first few weeks are going to be what he called the unfuck yourself phase. And yes, if you're an instructor, I would highly recommend this program. One of the first things I'll be the first person to admit, when I first got into the program and the first thing you said that we were going to be talking about was language, I was like, okay, this is going to be the how to and how not to, okay, whatever. And bam, that is not at all what this program has been. It has been such a phenomenal program. And, when he talks about breathing, it's not just that in and out breathing, exhaling when you strike. It's so much more in depth. And, I could probably talk about it for a while, but would you talk a little bit about kind of the instructor program and how you are helping me and the other instructors change our language and change just kind of what we're doing in order to be better instructors?
Yeah, for sure. So this is a program I wish existed when I was coming up. And I definitely wish it existed when I opened my business and started actually running the facility 7 years ago. And the way that like I said, what's missing, this idea of breathing and internal stories and language and how we communicate, it's more often than not, it's overlooked in the self-defense world. And again, I understand why. However, we're looking to change that. So the way the Instructor Elevation Program works, and I definitely want you to speak to this too, because I can harp on it all I want. At the end of the day, you're the one seeing the results. However, we walk you through the three biggest things in my mind and in my opinion that are holding back self-defense instructors from actually executing the way they want to and actually connecting in a way that they deep down inside they know they want to, they just may not realize exactly how to get there, is communication in general, which both comes down to being able to clearly communicate things and also the language you use. It comes down to lack of vision, where we're kind of looking at the next problem and looking at the next short-term urgent issue, and that keeps us from knowing where we want to go, both for ourselves and for our students, right? Like every single student that walks through your door, you should be, if you have 5 levels in black belt, for most Krav Maga systems, then you should be looking at them and going like, okay, cool. What is the plan for you to go from this first initial contact to black belt? And more often than not, most people, when they person comes through the door, like first initial thoughts, like this person ain't making it past level 2 or 3, whatever. But that's lack of vision. You know what I mean? You should want to know, like, what are their goals? What's the context? Where are they getting there? So we do a lot of vision casting stuff, right? Where, where the hell do you want to go? And when you actually look at where you want to be 5 or 10 years from now as a person, as a business owner, as a self-defense instructor, now we can start looking at everything we actually do day to day and figure out if it's going to get us where we want to go or if we're spinning our wheels. So vision's a huge part of it. So communication, vision, and then the biggest obstacle, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, the biggest obstacle in anything that is going on, the thing that is going to hold you back the most is you, right? And so we talk a lot about, okay, what stories are you telling ourselves, right? We just had a phenomenal call Thursday night, right? So 2 days ago, as of this recording, and where we got to do some live story work, right? So one of the attendees in class was like, man, all this stuff going on, I've got all these internal stories bogging me down and shutting me down. And you get to actually go through a process where you get out of your head and you can change that stuff. And then, look at his tone from like when we started that to when the final end of that. Now imagine being able to do that with yourself as a self-defense instructor, as a business owner, as a human. More importantly, imagine being able to do that with a student. Imagine a woman comes to you who has a history of domestic abuse, and she's coming through the door, and there's an internal story around a trigger that takes place that's going to hold her back from executing the way she wants to. And you show me one, lesson you learned through Krav Maga, one lesson you learned through defensive firearms, one lesson you learned in Thai boxing, that walks you through a process to take that person past that obstacle. I haven't seen it, and I've been training nonstop for 12 years. I had to go find it from crazy fucking CrossFitters that are teaching business development. You know what I mean? Like, and this is, and I tell people this all the time. I have absolutely been able to help, women that have been attacked, men that have found themselves in crazy situations, and I have absolutely helped them. However, I am now helping people in a way that I wish I would have been able to do for the last 10 or 12 years. And it was all from breath work, all from understanding vision and goals, what I want to do with my life, how I want to approach coaching, changing my language so that I can help other people change their language, changing my internal stories, help other people change theirs, understanding communication, right? We're working on communication this week. And the coaching is communication. I know I've said this like 12 times in the program, but coaching is communication. If you suck at communication and you don't understand language, negation, acknowledge, right? If you have trouble now understanding language, then it's going to be very, very difficult or harder than it should be for you to connect with the people you want to connect to and actually impact their lives. Look, if you're getting into business and you want to, help people lose 5 or 10 pounds and just punch some shit and have some fun, like that's cool. You'll get very, very far with the standard stuff. If you got into self-defense coaching because you want to help people through trauma and help people what will be the most violent, crazy, stressful, traumatic experience of their life, like somebody walking into their business and murdering a bunch of people in an active shooter situation, then the rule book or the lesson plan is coming from trauma. It's coming from psychology. It's coming from emotions. And in the instructor elevation program, we walk everybody through this process themselves and then show them how to deliver that with their students. All while making sure that they're actually doing the shit they want to do, which is a super important part of it. So yeah, the first 6 weeks is pretty much about, you can call it cleaning up your own house if you'd like. That's another way to put it. I prefer telling everybody to unfuck themselves. So it's 6 weeks of that. And then the last 4 weeks is, okay, cool. Now, how do we execute on our classes on a higher level? How do we get our message out there a lot better? And how do we actually communicate that message with the public? So we're making you a better instructor. My approach overall with the IEP program is to create good coaches and good business owners, then teach them the physical skills, because I got physical skills out the wazoo. However, the only thing that's going to make you a good coach is teaching you how to become a good coach. So if you're a phenomenal coach, then I can supply you with any physical skill set you want. You'll be able to take that shit, break it down, execute on it, and be able to deliver it. If you're a really good practitioner, you may be able to execute yourself on these things. However, being able to transfer that knowledge to somebody else in a profound, efficient way and actually connect with them, you're going to be lost in straws. So I wish that somebody had taught me to become an instructor before they taught me how to fight people. I learned how to fight people, screwed up a lot of people in the process for the first couple of years, and then eventually figured out how to become a really good instructor.
That's a fantastic story. Absolutely. And one of the things that I really like I said, I wasn't prepared for it, is how you really focus on changing language. And I know that I'm working on that very, very hard. So much so, my employees and my other instructors will come in now at least once a week and go, okay, what's this week's mantra? What are you putting up on the board? Because I have a board that faces me that they know I'm coming with something, something that I'm going to do a lot that week. They want to know what it is. They're excited to hear it, and they know that I'm working through some of this language. And I even catch them sometimes, and I'll say, oh, no, we're going to talk like this. These are the words we're going to use because, our stories, our language creates stories, and our stories create our future. And so, they're getting a lot of it around here. So again, they can come back and blame you for all of that.
For sure. They can blame me for all of the awesomeness that's about to happen to them. But remember,
go ahead.
And I want to say this, they ain't blaming me, right? You are the one that is actually, I'm serious, because this is one thing that instructors get. This goes back to the lineage conversation, right? Which again, lineage is awesome. It's great. Like, where did you get your trickle-down knowledge from? However, you are only as good as the person you're learning from, right? So you could very easily be going through this program and not implementing any of this and letting it all skate and float by, or keeping it to yourself. However, you are a phenomenal instructor. You are a phenomenal leader. You're an amazing CEO. And so you are taking the information and you are sharing it with people and executing on it. That's huge. I'm not doing any, I'm coaching you, and that's it. And then you get to go coach, 10 more people, and then those 10 people get to coach 100 people. And that's how we really impact each other. However, it still comes down, anything good that happens to them from the lessons they're getting, it's because you taught it to them. It ain't got nothing to do with me. I just, get in front of a camera and talk to the people that want to listen to me. That's it. At the end of the day,
definitely a lot to be said about doing the work.
Yes. Execute, man. Speed of implementation. The best way. I put this out there, and I'm pretty sure it drives most organizations nuts, maybe just a little bit. However, I'm such I'm terrible. I'm such a huge fan of telling everybody, I have no intellectual property. Take whatever you want. You don't even need to tell people it was me. I'm pretty sure that drives people nuts. What do you mean? What if they go forward and teach this and they don't give you credit? They're going and teaching people good shit. What do I care? But anyway, so that drives people nuts. But the other thing I tell people is the only way to become a good coach, I don't care who you are, the only way to become a good coach is to go out and coach. So I don't care if you freaking go watch. What was the first lesson that I made you guys do the first week for Speed of Implementation? Go on Instagram, pick a video of something you've never done before, watch it, practice it a couple of times, and then teach it. Make a video on it, because that's how you get good at it. So you've got to hit the ground running. And if you don't, or if you wait for the perfect time, or when I'm certified to coach something, or when I'm allowed to coach something, you need permission to help people, you hold yourself back. And so speed of implementation. So what are you doing? You're going to go watch a video with my dumb face on it and be like, ooh, that's a really good thing. And then speed of implementation, you go coach it to your staff and go coach it to your members. That's how you get stuff done, man. That's how you do it.
Well, and that's what I'm doing, as you know.
Yeah.
Well, for those people who are interested in the Instructor Elevation Program and all the stuff that you've got going on, because you do so much, where can people find more information?
Yeah, so you will find the most prominent activities of mine primarily on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, it's Jannetti Aaron, JANNETTI AARON. You can also find me on Facebook. You can go to aaronjannetti.com. We have a newsletter, so I put out a newsletter once a week. that has a lot of information on the different, remote training and in-person training that we do. You can find me at Endeavor Defense and Fitness in Columbus, Ohio. So if you ever find yourself on the west side of Columbus and Hilliard, come on in. We do CrossFit, powerlifting, firearms training, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, hybrid defense is our version of self-defense. We do yoga, we do personal development, we do goal setting. We shoot things, stab things, lift weights, and talk about our feelings. You can check out the book, How to Survive an Active Killer. I have a podcast that a buddy of mine and I did all last year called Kamiwaza. It's got a lot of great personal growth stuff on it. The next instructor elevation certification will be coming up, so we'll be releasing that. So if you're a gym owner or a coach and you want to jump on that, do it. I'd love to have you guys in there. You'll learn a lot. I promise you that much. If you want, see, right? I don't say, don't ask me. Ask Sheena, ask Kyle, ask Aaron, ask Chantel. Knife control concepts and active shooter. The certifications for active shooter response and knife control concepts, you got to go through IEP first. So the graduates get first dibs on that stuff. If you want to become a badass when it comes to coaching, I would love to share, my experiences with you. So check that out. You can find me all over the place, hopefully, especially on the internet now, right?
Yes. Well, I will link a bunch of that information below this video so that people can find you. I highly recommend anything Aaron does. I would highly recommend everything he said. I'll link it, and reach out, right? Especially if you are, in the self-defense industry and you're wanting to be a better instructor, do the program. It's worth it. I can tell you right now, I'm in the middle of it. It's worth it, and it's so much more than you expect. It's not just going to make you a better instructor. It's going to make you a better person. It's certainly worth every penny. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime soon.
Hey, thank you for having me. And hell, if we're all on martial law and social distancing for the next 8 weeks, what else we got to do?
Exactly. I think that's how I'm getting most of my calls. Everybody else's schedule has been kind of blown up at this moment. Everybody's bored.
Everybody is wide open and accessible. It's beautiful.
Wonderful. All right. Well, folks, we'll be back to you with some more interviews. So stay tuned and stay safe.